usually you talk to the level of the consciousness of the people you're dealing with, and consequently people have listened to tapes over the years and they say, why is it that you have so many diverse subjects and some things seem so absolutely spiritual and saintly and holy? And then I get another tape and it's absolutely raucous and hilarious, and about every line everybody's cracked up laughing. And I said, well, when you speak to the saints, you speak to one way, and when you speak to clowns, you speak another way. And, this group, we're still trying to decide. So what I thought I would do tonight, since there are a lot of you that are new to this idea of spiritual inner awareness, there is a religious inner awareness, and there's a church inner awareness, and then there's biblical inner awareness. And then some of you have studied probably the Bhagavad Gita inner awareness in the Muslims, and so we could go down the list of inner awareness. This is a movement of spiritual inner awareness. Specifically, those words shouldn't have to be defined any more than just that. But a person said, what is it that you do? What's the group you belong to? And I said, movement of spiritual inner awareness. And he said, what's that? So I knew I had a real dummy on my hands. So I took it easy and I said, do you understand movement? And he said, yes, movement. I said, do you understand the word spiritual? And he was a little lost on that, and I said, Casper the friendly ghost? He says, I got it. I said, okay. Spiritual. He says, I got it. And I said, inner. He goes, yeah. I said, and awareness. He said, awareness. I said, like, if somebody sticks you with a pin, you feel that, like life. And he goes, yes. I said, movement of spiritual inner awareness. And he said, why did you use Casper? I said, now that you know what it is, forget about Casper. That was just to get you in to find out for yourself. So all I do here, for the most part, is use reflective words that can reflect you in to your own inner awareness so you can know and find out for yourself. Now, it would really be sweet of me to stand up here and say you're all divine. And you'd be here next week to hear the same thing. Or I could get up here and say you're all sinners, and you'd come back next week to see if you've improved. But I'd still say you're all sinners, because once you get them coming in, you keep saying the same words. But I don't deal in that because the field's already taken. People ask me if I believe in a lot of that stuff, and I say, I don't have too many beliefs. I'm more of the old school of when you put your hand on the stove and it burnt, you knew that. And so the next time you went up to the stove, you wet your finger and then tapped it to see if it sizzled. Some of you are from that school too. Some of you are from the school where you've gotten into a shower and it's been too cold, which feels like it's too hot. You feel like you've been burnt. You understand there's a confusion in the senses. And so you wonder what to do, and you think, I won't do that again. But just by raise of hands, how many of you have done that more than once? I thought so. See, we're real intelligent, first of all. Let's get that real clear how smart we are. And then we can go from there. So let's just start at the lowest level of dumbness that we can get to here without necessarily insulting anybody nor really identifying anyone. So I'm going to start out with the fundamental level of inner awareness called the body. Now, most people think the body is a state of awareness. Now, in case you're wondering, we're referring to body, not mind, but it'll look like this. You got one It's that thing above your neck is not your neck blowing a bubble, it's your head. So it'll sort of have a head and a neck and the rest of it. If it's blowing a bubble, that's okay with me. That is where most of the people in today's society are functioning in their level of awareness. Control bodies. You know, put these bodies over here, put these bodies over here. You know, have this government to run these bodies. So they're into body awareness, into body count, and that's supposed to be important. Now, there's a whole group of people that know that you get a lot of different bodies and a lot of different lifetimes on the planet, so they don't care where you put their body. You can just drop it anywhere, because when they leave it, they'll pick up another one. And I don't really teach that. I'm one of these that teaches, take good care of the one you got and make it the last one so that you're through with it. But there is a question called, why do these people look at the body as a source of awareness, as a source of religious or spiritual belief? Well, it's quite obvious. We speak from it. And if we speak from it, it's quite obvious that it's coming from it. But if we only go to that level of thinking, we've dropped way short of the philosophy regarding the body. If the body is the awareness and it's spiritual, and those words then mean eternal and everlasting, because they're invisible, the body shouldn't go to sleep. It should stay awake, and it shouldn't die. But it's got this notoriously bad habit of going so many years and then dying on you. So there's a lot of distrust about the bodies. And consequently, there's a lot of distrust in relationships about who's doing bodies with what bodies. As though that was something important. That thing's going to get older and die, and you're going to fight and get divorced over certain things about it, or you're going to want to feed it until it balloons out as big as it can get, or, you know, put food in it and then throw it back up again just to save on something, I don't know what. But a lot of these people that are anorexic and bulimic are really don't want to get big. They don't want big bodies. They want little bodies, and there's a way to do that. It's called don't eat so much. It is very simple-minded, just don't eat so much. But they eat like everybody else, and then while you're not watching, they go into the bathroom and heave it back up again. You know, that type of person I wouldn't want to be married to, because she'd be eating me out of house and home, and I wouldn't know it. I'd just soon have her cut down on her diet and not throw it up. Because you're spending all this money thinking, boy, she's going to be healthy the way she's tanking away at that. And then she's not even getting the nutrition out of it. So, you know, we have to put the body in its perspective. When I ask people, how old are you? You know, they usually sit and they sort of roll their eyes back up, tilt their head. Because you've actually asked them a question that's very, very difficult to answer. We all know how many years we've been on the planet. But when we say, how old are you? That's different. If I said, how many years have you been on the planet? Most of us can whip it out real fast. When you get to my age, we start subtracting numbers. It takes a little bit longer, which doesn't matter. Then we say, well, how old are you? And then they'll give an age, and I say, well, now, is that how old you are, or is that how old your body is? And then they say, well, that's how old my body is. And I say, well, how old are you? And they say, well, I said, that's who I want to know, the I. How old is the I that said I? And do you know something? They really come up with, I guess it could just be any age I want to put on. 15, 29, 80. Some days I feel real old. Some days I don't feel real old. So then I immediately go into the emotions. If the emotions are the seed of I, this I that speaks, then it's got to be eternal also, doesn't it? It has to have the spiritual, eternal awareness. But have you ever noticed that when your body goes to sleep, your emotions go to sleep with it? And that when your body dies, your emotions die with it. Now, I know you have never noticed that because you haven't done that yet. But when you do that, notice it. That the body will stop, and then you say, the body stopped, the emotions go away. About the time the emotions stop, the feeling of fear of dying will also have left you. Now, dying isn't a tragedy. And I'm one of those people I'm a contrarian when I say that, death is a terrible thing. I don't believe that. Now, mostly it's because I'm facing it. I don't want to go around facing life saying death is a terrible thing, because then every day it could be the day I die, so this is going to be a terrible day. I don't want to live like that. So death isn't a terrible thing. It's just one of the things. It happens to be a great mystery. I'll give you that one. Because there aren't too many people that can, with any degree of scientific validity or substance, show you anything about it afterwards. But it can be done. And the movement of spiritual inner awareness teaches that. Now, see, that's where it starts to get strange. A lot of people go, uh-oh. The body doesn't make it, the emotions don't make it. He's talking about the mind. I understand that. Yes, he's saying that the mind will transcend identity. No, I'm not saying the mind's going to transcend it. Have you ever gone to sleep and your body goes to sleep and your emotions go to sleep and you wake up in the morning and you don't know where you are? Your mind went to sleep. Have you ever been going to call somebody and you forgot to call them? Have you ever promised somebody something and then forgot what the promise was and even who the something was? How many of you remember what you ate 35 days ago at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Well, if you had a mind, you should be able to remember that. Isn't that an easy criteria? That the mind is just an easy thing to be called forward to know that. Well, it's quite obvious that the mind goes into its sleep state, into its quiet place. Similarly, that the body goes into its quiet place and the emotions goes into its quiet place. The mind goes into its quiet place. But now comes the woo-woo time. Who is this I that says I, if it's not the body, and it's not the emotions, and it's not the mind, then I was going to say who is it, but I was going to say what is it, but maybe we should say where is it? Because if it doesn't exist in those places, and it's existing, and I say I, and I know who that is, it says that. I don't know it like I know my hand, because I can only see my eyes by reflection. Show me a mirror and I'll show you my eyes. But this I can't be seen by reflection either. And yet it is the essence that we measure existence by, the essence. Now, here comes the hard one. That I is eternal and has always existed. Now, people are going to say, if it always existed, was it ever created? I'm not going to get into that. Well, okay, I'll get into that. I mean, if it's going to hold you up, I'll get into it. Bible says that man was created in God's image. God said he's always existed, Alpha and Omega. And if that's true, this I that speaks has always existed because it's made in God's image. That ends that. If you don't like it, let's do it through evolution. God created it, got a piece of dirt, made it look sort of nice, breathed into it. And that breath of existence has always existed, and that's who says I. And then it's evolved up to what looks like a human being. I'm not going to argue with that. I'm here. See, I can't make any difference on the argumentative statements of evolution or creation. I'm not too sure, looking at some people, that they haven't crossed back and forth a line quite a few times. Somebody said they were looking for the missing link. I said, look in the mirror. He said, well, human beings can't be the missing link. I said, I think we're the missing link. Everything else fits, we don't. Now think about it for just a little bit. Do you really fit? You go, as we say in Spanish, etsy getsy. Oh, that's Greek, etsy getsy. Sometimes I fit, sometimes I don't. When I don't, what doesn't fit? How I feel about it. Well, that's the emotions. They're not designed to fit. They're designed to give me information of my internal state and the external things. They're designed to give me information. I didn't say intelligent information. It's like this feeling goes up, the husband says, you don't love me anymore. He goes, yeah, I do. She says, I don't feel it. So she's saying her feelings are more intelligent than when he says, yes, I love you. So her feelings are calling him a liar. Well, that's not unusual in our society. I mean, you can get called a liar without any feelings at all. All you have to do is have a different reference point for stating something than somebody else, and they line up all their evidence, and you line up all your evidence, and then you check off to see who's got the most evidence. When you get through, none of it is proof. It's just evidence. So I don't do evidence, I go proof. Let's go for the proof. Well, where are we going to go to get that? Well, you can't come to me. That's not, you're not going to get it there. I'll come to me to get my proof, and you'll come to you to get your proof. But this proof that I'm talking about is the experience of existence of yourself. Okay, when I said, here we come to the woo-woo mystical time, I'm not going to say, have you? I'm going to say, how many? Because now we're starting to get to the upper crust. Not the intellectual ones, they were the middle crust. The upper crust are the intelligent ones. You know, the intelligence that we call God is intelligent. How many of you have ever been in bed asleep and your body's been quiet and your emotions have been quiet and you've been having a dream and you've been standing back watching the dream? Raise your hand. Oh, I kind of thought so. Who is the one that is watching? That's who we want to deal with, because if it can watch while the other sleeps, it's awake and eternal. And that's the one we've got to get into. It's breathing us, it's walking us, it's digesting food, it's thinking. It is, for lack of a better word, intuitive knowing. One fellow wrote a book called The Infallible Intuition, which he then says that is God. I just call it infallible intuition. Why? Well, because I'm okay with just saying God. That doesn't rupture me up inside. You know, there are a lot of people, if you sit and use the word Jesus Christ in a group, they immediately go into their defense mechanisms and want to fight you about saying that. And others, if you don't say the word, they equally want to fight. So I tell people, listen, if I'm not saying the word that best describes it for you, tell it to yourself and then you've got it. Does it matter whether I say it or you say it? No, it makes no difference. You're going to say the one that stops you from having blockage between us in communication. All I'm doing is moving vibration of air in front of me. And since it's connected to the vibration of the air in front of you, it's vibrating on your ears. and then you're interpreting that vibration according to your own belief structure. You imagine that 50 years from now, and this is called theoretical nonsense. It might be true though, because see, 50 years is still to come. A same person given this information would have to use a different type of vocabulary that would be restricted or limited to the time and the era and the people that you're talking to. We may be talking to a post-atomic bomb war era people who go around grunting. The conversation could be quite different. We know, going back historically, that every teacher who spoke always spoke to the culture of the time. We go back to the Greeks, the way they related to the gods was through the mythology of many gods, giving them human characteristics, and that's how they got along in their society. It's much more complicated than that, but if you get the idea, the Egyptians went back and they had a lot of their gods, and the Chinese and Tibets had a lot of their gods. And then they finally got around that if God is in everything and knows everything, they designed little prayer wheels. So all you've got to do instead of pray is flip the wheel, and as it goes around, it makes its own tune vibration, and the prayer goes and rises into heaven. Heaven's called up in the air. And I've been up there at 36,000 feet, and I never found it. I know there's a headache up there. And I know there's sometimes a person smoking next to you. And I know that it can get very dry up there. That wasn't quite my idea of heaven, but if that's it, then I'm not really too interested in that one. And I want to go back to the drawing board, and I want to have a little more agricultural things and a little more humidity and a lot more health, wealth, and happiness. Just generally, not in that order, but in a great deal of abundance of all of it. You know, it's like all I want is all there is and then more, so that I get to the point where I don't want any more. Now, if I get to the point where I don't want any more, then it's going to get boring. That's taking us back out into the physical worlds. We look across this planet, and there is abundance, and let's use the word food. Abundance of food to feed everyone. We have great distribution channels to do this. We were down in the Amazon River in January, February, off in a little town, walked down a little street, and they had like Sony Walkmans for sale. I didn't even think there was a radio station out there where we were, let alone a little Sony Walkman. Well, since I already had one with me, I put it on, and sure enough, you could hear the jungle drum beats. No, I'm just joking. Well, you have to see if you're still with me. The distribution is very, very simple. Almost every country has an army. And all you'd have to do is mobilize them into a peace force and let them, through their ability to distribute goods all over the world. There would be enough. It could happen rapidly. Within a month, everyone could be eating and having food. Isn't that strange? But we're not going to do that, because that's not the time where we've worked out all the difficulties of body placement, emotional behavior, and social philosophical thinking, where we can come into a oneness to know that we're all really, use the term, children of God. We haven't all come to that, because some groups are better children of God than other groups are children of God. I know one church that they can sing in there, but you can't play any instruments. In another group, they play and sing. And another group, they don't dance, but the group down the street dances. And another group goes down the basement and they have a bar. And that's how they keep a new roof on the church, is because they charge for the beer and the wine. They get enough money, they put a new roof on the church. I was going to ask them, how often do they put a roof on the church? Because maybe they could up their prices on their drinks and they could get something else besides. You know, being an entrepreneur, you think ahead for the group. These things are going on around us. And while all of that is going on inside of us, we have to watch that we maintain a status quo with ourselves. But how can we have peace and happiness when the body has got disease or illness in it? And that's the focus. So how can you be happy focusing upon a cancer or a headache or something negative in your body? It's not real happy time. Then people say, I don't love you as much as I used to. And you immediately go into the depression, and then they say, I love you a lot more, and then you immediately come out to happiness. So you feel like you're a yo-yo. You know, you go down, then you come up, and then you go down, you come up, and you finally say, listen, I'm not going to do anything with my emotions till you finish telling me everything. Then when you get through, say, that's it, and then I'll decide whether I want a yo-yo or not. But I know a lot of people will give you a little bit of information, and they breathe, and so then you make the decision, they say, but I think you'd like to know, and then they give you the rest of the information that shows you that your first decision was absolutely an error. And you're thinking, if you told me all the information, I would not have made that decision. I would have made the other decision. So I tell people when they start that with me, I say, decide for yourself. If I like it, I'll participate. If I don't, I'll go home early. You decide. You decide whether I'm going to be going home early or whether I'm going to be staying and participating. Now, in the sense of the word, that's what we're all doing, isn't it, with each other? By what we do in our behavior, we're deciding whether a person stays with us or they go someplace else early. See, once we get past the body and the emotions and the mind, and we come back to this I'm going to start calling it some different names to expand your mind a little bit. Let's call it the over-self. Let's call it the soul. Let's call it the supreme being. Let's just call it being pure. Let's call it pureness. Let's call it a high self. So if you've got some other names that you feel comfortable, like Gertrude or Max, go ahead and call it that. I mean, I don't care. But once we start going in to find out if what I have said is true, comes the great testing time. And we're tested by the polarities of the planet, the positive and the negative. So we sit down very quietly to go in. We say, well, I now have 20 minutes. I'll go inside and see who I am. Mine is, good luck. I hope you're stepping on a banana peeling so you can slide through there in a hurry. But you might go right out the back door and say, well, there's nobody home. I'm sure a lot of us have looked inside and said, there is nobody home. There is somebody home if your blood is still running. If you're still able, when somebody hits you and argues with you, if you're able to, at least in your mind, swing back and argue back, there's somebody home. But that one who argues is the persona or the personality or the ego that gives us its presence in the world, where we then are taught and trained by today's educational system, which closes our mind. We actually get out of high school, thank God for small mercies, go to college and make it through there, and then get out and learn how to be educated. We really learn how to start to live, and most of us, the things we took in college, we lament the time spent there. Well, see, now we're in the University of Hard Knocks. And this is the university where it really applies. No one has really given us a diagram or a textbook or a reference plan of how do we go through this life. No one was born with a guarantee, a warranty, or directions. So your parents raised you the best way they knew how, and you raised yourself the rest the way you knew how. And if you don't have it the way you like it, start changing it. Why? Because it's an arbitrary choice the way you did it in the first place. So it can be arbitrary in the second place. All we're saying to ourselves then is, why don't we give ourselves the best opportunity to find the joy and happiness inside that we can possibly find? And yes, John Roger, I don't think there is any joy, happiness inside, but if you think there is and you say you found it, I'm going to prove you a liar. Prove me a liar. Just prove me a liar. I dare you. You'll be in the movement of spiritual inner awareness, because you will have to go through these things and check them out. And when you do, you will come to that one who is eternally aware. And you're going to be very surprised. Then you'll write me a nasty letter that says, you never really told me the truth about it. Listen, how can you tell the truth about infinite silence, infinite invisibility? What are the probabilities of a highly improbable, probable engine taking place on our planet? It's either 1 billion or it's 0, depending upon your improbabilities. So either way, I can lose depending upon your setup. If you want me to lose, yes, I can lose in your setup. But you're going to lose also, and I'm going to walk away with the happiness of having been and found that. Now, there's a biblical scripture that says we have our coming and our going in the body of God. Either that's a lie or that's a truth. If it's symbolic, then we better find out what the symbols mean. Because if it is so, and we're not there yet knowing that, we're lazy and we'd better get off it. Whatever we're on, we'd better get off it and get to the other thing. And that's a serious statement for a goal orientation person. So we close our eyes and we go in. We know very well through sexual intercourse that as you think towards a climax, your breathing picks up. Right? Everybody know that? None of you have done that. I'll raise my hand. I have. Yeah. You breathe harder, you act harder, you move harder, you think towards the object of where you're going. And it makes the mind think faster. And as the mind thinks faster, the body reacts faster, and the electrons shoot through your system, and you then have what's known as an orgasm. That's for all you dummies that didn't raise your hands. That's in case you wondered what it was. It is a little bit different than blowing your nose, but not much. I mean, after a few minutes, you feel better if you've blown your nose too. When we get back into these areas inside of us, we know that if breathing fast speeds up the mind and we can't get back past our mind, it's quite obvious we start slowing down the breathing. We start to bring the body into relaxation. People say you're going to hypnotize yourself. Who says I'm not already hypnotized and now I'm dehypnotizing? I'm going to slow my mind down. And for maybe the first 100 times I do it, all I do is get to have my breathing slowed down and my mind is still jumping. But one day it'll start to slow down. And the emotions underneath it will start to slow because they're supporting the mind. That's their job. If you get a thought, you get a feeling to hold it up there so you can feel righteous and pure and sure, and then attack the enemy, whoever they are. Everybody, anybody else. Just me, I'm right. Well, that's what we do. Of course, then we get a group together, then we're right and they're wrong. It's called churchianity. It's called governments, it's called nations, it's called division, separation. It sure can't be a unity of God. Because I happen to find him all over the world, working with people. Ooh, it's wonderful to find God all over the world working with people, regardless of what they think and thought and felt and what they did with their body. Then go back inside, and that glory of the image starts to move forward, and you start to feel it, and you start to feel very good about sitting there. Here's the bad news. If you don't have somebody that'll come and kick you up, you're like a yogi sitting in the mountains in the Himalayas for 40 years. You go to get up, and your legs are petrified. In our society, in the Western world, that doesn't work. The landlord comes and kicks us out. So we know we've got to get out there and, by the sweat of our brow, earn whatever has to be earned to keep body and soul together. And I mean that. But we find that we start setting aside 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. And we go in. And as we quiet the mind and the emotions quiet, the body quiets. And sometimes all it is quiet. I don't know if you know it, but at that moment, the body can start to heal itself of the stress of living because it's quiet. The moment the heart is beating, it's under stress, and it relaxes, it's rest. It's healing itself between pumping. It's resting, working, resting. The same way with breathing. We're in this moment always of stress, relax. Stress, relax. When you're swimming, one arm is going out, pulling water, and the other arm behind you is relaxed. And as you move, they come to a balance, and then one goes into stress and the other goes into relax. Every game you see, there is that. The mind does that. The emotions do that. I could sit and lay out examples for you and all of these, but you've already lived a lot of them. Use your own examples. And then you choose to sit and go into the quiet. And you go in there, but it's not still. Things move. And things that used to bother you, all of a sudden you seem to get above it. And I use the word all of a sudden because it happens all of a sudden. That's called faith. You sit there and you wait until the I that is you says, hello. How long do you sit at the gates of the kingdom of heaven until the gatekeeper says, come on in? Called grace in many groups. In the rest of the world, it's called patience. It's one thing that we lack, isn't it? Patience. I mean, we'll wait, Lord, but give it to us right away. And yet that very patience is the pausing of healing. The patience of letting somebody have their say-so. The patience of a baby growing. The patience of medical treatment to take effect. The patience of putting in time in a job to advance. But in that patience, I'm not saying you don't do anything. Inwardly, you go inside and you strengthen the contact with this supreme being that is also you in your supreme being and in everybody else's supreme being. And in that contact, we feel the spiritual flow. And there's a thing called glory. When you've been in there and you come out into the world, it starts to come with you. And people walk up to you and they say, what do you do? You have something in your eyes. You know something about something that I got to know about. How do they know they got to know about it? Because they also are in contact with that, as distant as it may be, because of all the things in the world they've put between the I and who we have as a personality. So we start to put those things in their places. A good conscientious mind, a good studious mind, a mind that has gone through a university and learned how to concentrate and hold focus, can move into the spiritual inner awareness faster than someone who has poor study habits, who can't focus, who can't hold a concentration. Because their mind's darting all over. Who's down at the pool hall? What about my car? How about this? How about that? How about that? There's no answers to that. So we have to get up and go find out. That I goes with us, finds out, comes back and says, it was a wasted trip. But now you know, you stop to go back inside. At some point, and I can't tell you the time because it depends on where you grew up, how your family treated you, how you were educated, what you were educated in, all the habit patterns you've adapted to yourself. All of that all has to be taken and put together, and then when we get that, we consider how long it takes. But I will tell you this, as long as it takes, you'll be so thrilled. Because you will then be saying, I, and that I will vibrate through the room. That I will be the power that's eternal. It does not want to have you submit. It does not want to be in subterfuge with you or deceitfulness. It wants to be in that lovingness where we look in each other's eyes and we forgive the mistakes of the lower consciousness because it's learning. As soon as it's made, we forgive it and learn and go. And that I, that Supreme Being, says, don't beat part of yourself up with part of yourself, but love yourself with the other part of yourself. Every one of the people that have found the spiritual I have all said the source of that is love. Isn't that amazing? Now look at all the horrendous things that have been done in the name of love, and you're going to know that I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the type of love that has allowed me to do all the dumb things that I did and allowed me to learn from it, knowing that I would learn and come out at the end better for it. That's got to be a lot of love. It's certainly got to be a lot of faith. And am I through with it yet? No. No. When my body's dead, and we're sure of that. I mean, some days it feels a little deader than other times. After I'm dead a year, then we'll decide what it was all about. But you people that have been listening with the heart, with the wisdom, have been listening through your I. The I am that I am. Not a blasphemous statement, not a heretical statement, a statement of empirical truth evidently found when you experience it for yourself. And everyone who condemns a statement out of the ignorance of their intellect have never experienced it. And then they will judge you with the book that says, judge not, lest ye be judged. For justice is mine, thus saith the Lord. And if it is the Lord that is the I that speaks in each one of us, we have no recourse than to follow the admonitions when it says, how do you know that ye are my disciples? That you do love one another, even as I have loved you, and even as I still love you, through all the things you do and don't do and do wrong and lie and deceive and all the negativity, and that I still love you. That's got to be something magnificent. We know that it doesn't come readily to us in our personality, because we sometimes gleefully watch people be hurt or put down. See, the most wonderful thing that we know today about our American media, they love to make heroes. They put them up on pedestals. Then each one gets a saw. And then they start sawing off the legs of the pedestal. And this thing tilts. And they say, wait a minute, I thought you liked me. Now you're saying these bad, and they fall. And they fall down, they say, well, there went another one. They'll learn to get upon the pedestals we put up for them. But the experience pedestal cannot be sought out from underneath you, because you'll know that you know. And they can talk to the back of your head as you walk out the door, and it is not an insult to them, but it's letting them know that they still have work to do. And it's letting you know that you have a place where you belong that is not in that place. We have to find the places where we fit, where we belong, where we contribute, where we feel good. We must find those. And the only place we ever find those is inside of us, because it's not out there. I've seen jobs, I said, oh, I'd love that job. 6 weeks later, I can't wait to get out of that job. How many of you have ever done that? Oh, well, you know what I'm talking about. But we knew that it was a stepping stone to a better job, and when we got that better job, we made it a stepping stone. And then we made all these other people that were little pebbles along the way that we tripped over problems. That's a perceptive problem, not a people problem. A perceptive problem. We watch our perceptions. We come from the inner awareness of having experienced our own faults, our own mistakes, and we find that we're ready to forgive. We're more than ready to forgive. Before they've even done it, we've forgiven them. But if you do it again, I'll kill you. No. How do we know that God is in the forgiveness business? He said, how many times you forgive me? He says, 7 times 70. Do you really think he meant 490 times? Or do you think he was talking about as many times as is necessary? How many times do you want to be forgiven when you fell off something that you knew you should have stayed on the straight and narrow? You want to be forgiven right into the heart of God. Where is that heart going to be found? Right back inside of you. A lady came to me many years ago and she said, I've been to church and I prayed for forgiveness and I didn't get it. I don't feel forgiven. And she said, did Jesus forgive me? I said, no, I don't think so. She said, why not? I said, I don't think he judged you. She said, well, why do I have this feeling of not feeling forgiven? I said, I think you forgot to forgive yourself. And she went like this to me. And she was sitting sort of on the floor. And I was talking, I walked over there, and she was sitting, and I just took my foot and sort of hit her a little bit. I says, have you done it yet? She said, what? And I said, forgiven yourself? She said, I can't forgive myself. I did it. It was dumb. It was stupid. I said, I'm not going to argue with your reasons. They're all perfect. But have you forgiven yourself yet? She says, how do I do it? I say, repeat after me. She goes, okay. I go, I. She went, I said, forgive. She said, forgive myself. Myself. I said, okay. She said, okay. She says, you know, it's, and then she started crying. She says, I don't mean to cry like this, but God's forgiven me. I said, that's true. I had no arguments. It just took a while for it to get to her mouth so that she could also forgive herself. Folks, if we can't make a mistake and be all right with ourselves, we're on the wrong planet, because that's designed in here. And since it's designed in here, you know, with me, the work that I do, I'm not going to judge you. I know you're going to judge me. I'm sitting up here. That stands to reason. I'm not going to talk to you when you judge me, but I'm not going to judge you. Okay, I'll talk once in a while. All right, just enough to let you know I still think you're okay. But when you judge somebody, make sure that the place you judge from can't be judged in return. And the Bible said it. You know, take the stick out of your own eye before you try to remove the one from your neighbor. Isn't that right? A lady told it to me many years ago when I was 18, 19 years old. She read a poem. I was into a meeting as a big skeptic to put her down and all that. That was my job in the lifetime, making everybody wrong in this lifetime. And she talked a poem called Walk Around Yourself. It's before you say something bad about your neighbor, walk around yourself. Before you point out people's faults, walk around yourself. And it went on and on. I thought she was going on all night long. And when she got through, I realized there was no way I could say anything bad about her because I still had a lot of things in my closet. So I took her class and took 9 months to clean the things out of my closet. 9 months. I had a lot of closets. I thought I only had one. I had hundreds. And I've been cleaning them out ever since. You open it and you go, that's still in there? I thought it would rotted by now. Anybody can see that if they look. So take it out and show it. You take it out and you show it. You show your follies, you show your faults, you show your humanness, and you show that you can love yourself and others through it all, in spite of it all, because God has been residing in us as us, helping us overcome the faults of the lower nature and supporting us in everything. Think about that tonight. Tomorrow morning you're going to get up a lot happier. You're going to have a lot more strength of purpose of getting to be more acquainted with this magnificent being that you are. And you're going to look in the mirror and those eyes are all of a sudden going to shift. There's going to be something bright look out there and you're going to say, hi. It may talk. It might not. But whatever it says, I'd check it out. Because you can hear a lot of things speak through your mind. And we have to check out everything. What I've told you here this evening, don't believe it. I didn't come here to change your beliefs. I didn't come here to make you change anything. Just come here to spend time with you, to share with you. You check it out. If you check it out, no matter which way the wind blows and how the earth shakes, you won't be shaken. Because that can be shaken will be shaken. And if you believe without your evidence and your experience, then you have hardships and you fall hard. Well, once you have the experience of that knowing, no matter which way it blows, you're right there. That will be a day where you feel real grateful to yourself. That'll be the day when we're all going to be standing grateful to ourselves. That may be the day when God is grateful amongst His people. Maybe as us and maybe as a greater form to guide us. If I had a prayer or wish for you, I would pray that you would go inside and come to the knowing that you know, not intellectually, but the experience of that being of joy, of ecstasy. And then you get to say, why didn't I get there sooner? Baby Ruth Special.